If you're a coach that's stuck in the exhausting and painful feast to famine cycle, then this video is for you. I want to walk through the patterns that keep coaches stuck in this feast to famine cycle and the exact steps to break free from the feast to famine cycle. And this comes from having worked with hundreds of coaches and spotting and noticing the patterns, but also having gone through the feast to famine cycle many times myself and breaking free from it. And if you're new here, my name's Joel. I'm a business coach to heart-led coaches, and this is my beautiful asleep daughter. So let's talk about first the patterns. So what happens with coaches in this cycle at the bottom of a cycle, let's call it a trough, is that coaches simplify and go back to what works. And often this is as simple as creating content, being in conversations, coaching and making offers. And of course, when we go back to what works, we soon follow an uptrend, right, towards the peak of a trough, peak of a wave. But also something else happens in the trough of a wave is that we create from neediness and desperation, and we sell and market very much from manipulation and sales tactics and strategies, which, yes, they work, but often it creates substandard clients that we wouldn't necessarily want to work with over the future. Now, so what happens after the trough of a wave is that we have lots of clients because we focus on the stuff that works, but these clients aren't necessarily clients that we want to work with over the long haul. And because, and this is the biggest point to take here, is that because we won't grow into pain, we create lots of clients, but we take our eyes off the marketing, the sales, the content, because we won't grow into pain. We don't actually want to create more clients like this because we don't actually necessarily enjoy working with these clients. So we take our eyes off marketing. And of course, so what happens is we focus solely on the delivery, take our eyes off marketing and content, and we're at the peak of a wave. Once our clients' contracts start to end, we start to go back to the trough of a wave because we realize we have no prospects, no potential clients in the pipeline, and we're back to square one. And we're back to the trough of a wave where we're creating clients from neediness, desperation, and low standards. So the reasons why coaches stay stuck in this feast to famine cycle is firstly, no marketing engine or system. And the result of this is operating your business on a buy or die, i.e. your clients or your prospects, if they don't become clients there and then, they die. You lose them to the ether and they go and sign up with someone else. We have no engine or system that builds trust, relatability, and nurtures them over the long haul. The second is actually a sneaky one, and that's self-sabotage. See, I believe for most people, their greatest fear is actually the fear of their own light, fear of their own success. It was certainly true for me. See, I noticed a pattern when I was at the peak of a wave is that I actually would self-sabotage and create circumstances and environment which would get me back to the trough of a wave. Now, what drove that was the fear of success, but also perhaps an addiction to the struggle, which I know is so true for so many coaches. And how we self-sabotage is we sign up to new courses, or we sign up to new coaches, or we invest in a marketing agency or certain ads, and we essentially stop doing the things that got us to the peak of the wave, to the good times. And that leads to distraction. And as Alex Hormozy says, distraction kills more businesses than competition does. So that distraction leads us to the trough of the wave where we realize, I'm going to go back to what works. And we do the stuff that works, we simplify, and we find ourselves at the top of a wave. And unless we break that pattern, we're going to consistently be on this feast to famine cycle. So that's the second reason, is self-sabotage, and a really sneaky way that fear turns up. I call it fear in fancy dress. Fear turns up to keep us small and safe, because remember, our mind does not want us to be successful. Our mind wants us to be small and safe and not out there risking potential rejection. So that's the third one. The third is no multi-year vision for their clients. So this means that you just have 3 to 4 month contracts, and once your clients come to an end, their contract expires and they move on, and you're constantly having to create new clients, and it's exhausting, and that leads to that feast to famine cycle again, because creating clients is so hard, it's so much energy. So when you create loads, you don't want to go back into that energy and have to create from that space. So that's what keeps coaches stuck in that cycle. So how to break free from the feast to famine cycle? Well, the first is spotting this pattern, spotting especially the pattern of the self-sabotage, and noticing when you're at the top, how are you self-sabotaging? And really, the key here is to create space between the stimulus and the response. So when you are at the peak of a wave, this is actually the best time to slow down, to simplify even further, and to double down on the things that are working, not think, I need to sign up to something new. So that's the first thing, is spotting the pattern. The second is breaking free from what I call this survival standard paradigm. See, I live by a quote, what you do on a tough days determines what you do on extraordinary days. And when you are in the trough of a wave, this is actually your greatest opportunity to break free and have a massive breakthrough. Because what most coaches do is they go into their past self, and as I say, they create clients from that space, which ultimately clients they don't necessarily want to work with over the long haul. So when you are at the trough of a wave, this is actually your greatest opportunity to raise your standards and not be someone that just takes any payment from anyone with a heartbeat and a credit card, but actually has standards and holds those standards in the trough of a wave. And you'll be tested most in the trough of a wave. But what I've experienced when I've held my standards in the trough of a wave, I've had my greatest breakthroughs. And what's fueled this for me is a deep level of trust in some divine order, in the universe, in source, in the Tao, whatever you want to call it. But I have a deep level of trust in what's meant to be will be. Now, this isn't giving up, but this is surrendering and holding my standards of what I think I'm worth. And really, again, what also fuels this is doing the inner work and knowing my own personal self-worth. The third way to break free from this cycle is building an MRR offer. MRR standing for monthly recurring revenue. So this was a game changer for me with my first coaching business, where I coached high performing men. I built a membership called the Modern Man Membership, and it was priced at around £100 to £500. And I had eventually 55 men on that, and that just covered all my basic outgoings for me, my family, and my business. And that just took me out of any desperation and neediness state and allowed me to really create from a place of abundance. And so creating circumstances where you aren't needy, where you aren't ever in that desperation stage. And the best way for that is monthly recurring revenue, where you have predictable revenue coming in. Now, this is a whole bit of training that's way too long for this video, but if you look up here, there'll be some training on that will help you there. The final thing is systems. My formula for flow is discipline plus surrender plus systems, and it's why I feel so in flow with life right now. Business life feels relatively effortless for me, and a large amount of that comes down to the systems that I have in place. Again, I've got a video up here for the systems, but ultimately the main system you want here to break free from this feast to famine cycle is a client creation engine, a system that builds trust, relatability over the long haul with your prospects, so that the people that you spoke to 3 months ago say yes at the same time as the people you spoke to 6 months ago and 9 months ago and 12 months ago and 1 month ago. And what happens when you have a system that nurtures your audience and builds that trust, as I say, they all start saying yes at the same time, and you experience exponential and compound growth. And as Einstein said, compound growth is the 8th wonder of the world. And that's the result of this client creation engine. The other systems is systems around content creation, content distribution, and operations like client management and what have you. And for me, I have a whole VA playbook that basically does all this for me. So it frees me up to focus on the things that I enjoy doing and that are important for me, which is ultimately client creation, content creation, coaching, conversations, and really cultivating my creative force and magnetism, and working on the high leverage projects that are really going to dramatically move my business forward. But it's really the 4 C's that are most important to me. So that is how to break free from the feast to famine cycle. But this video up here will go into more details. And yeah, I'd love to hear what's your biggest insight from this training, this video. Comment with your biggest insight, and make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. It's pretty new, and I'm recording these videos roughly every day now, and dropping a lot of value bombs. Anyway, sending you so much love all the way from this beautiful island, Madeira, and have a beautiful day.